someone would agree, and I have a plan. There's a Colonel Douglas McGregor, for example. In other words, I watch a YouTube channel of Judge Napolitano's Judging Freedom. He has these serious issues in the world. But also I'm using hyper evidential. For example, I was attached to fake words about the World Trade Center. Others were attached to change the words and they lied about the outcome of legal cases with people that had roles with federal criminals in the cases, like an NLRB case associated with co-defendants, a former director of the FBI in a 2006 district court case, which was a different nature of cases, a civil pro se case against former director of the FBI and various natures of federal criminals as his co-defendants and one's tied to them and their family members. And their roles also with proven child abusers, leaders of the kids. Even if that's made up because they have undercover police forms and the way they have acting professors involved and individually grouped and together uses of the sciences at the campuses. See, where we can use the hyper-evidential to discern this. It shows that one of the things that forgiveness is for is because this breaching method employed rolls with all sides of criminal and civil cases and the formal identities, the law and the lawyers of the law, like the lawyers of the judges and the prosecutors, and the news at the same time. Names off the crime scenes, planting the same sequence shifts, fact, human nature, quality aspects in nature, employed by the breaching method indirectly but we're directly, right, also with ourselves, how it's through ourselves juxtaposed. Otherwise, that body is sensed, including if that body is a majority of people, including if it is everyone, Black pupils. See, we have Black pupils, white divides, and this has been left out from what caused slavery, because through our schools, they stayed breached, hyper criminally foreign influenced, for a method from semi-ancient times that made everyone blame other things, others themselves, and then maintain that, which simultaneously, without them realizing, maintain needs more and more to be incapable of affording discern what really properly short words and convictions for the names of the sciences themselves and for the human species volume. So we're not able to speak it. A certain type of victim / hyper victim was propagated. So now I'm explaining most writers they would keep their theories and things like that for the history of faith out. But it's too serious. And we have not had possession of our names, A through Z of the human volume science. We have been systems tactical ulterior for this method. It came from some ancient times. That's why slavery was sickly distinctly against peoples. And functionally, for the breaching method, is how sickly non-distinctly was and is increasingly being demonstrated by nature. And it's used by that breaching method to show people that they need to keep that blame down other things other than themselves. They need to keep people pretending that it was legitimate to pretend that the appearance of justice. I was taught that Marbury versus Madison means real justice must satisfy all appearances of real justice. This is James Madison, and the founders behind him are the ones who got George Washington to agree to use their plan, to use James Madison's plan, and to counter-extort at 13 locations. And inside more than 13 colonies had possession north and south. Sickly distinctly too, no. but also sickly non-distinctly with slavery entrenched north and south before America's founders were born. That is not clear because there are theater takes on American patriotism, on law, on the appearance of justice, on crimes that have stage roles of predicate acts with facts. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a journalist. Even the journalists, even their neighbors. This is a breaching method used that is manifest everywhere the human species body is in countries A through Z. Everyone next to everyone. There is a hyper foreign here. So even if you blame it, even when it's discernible, yes, it is. It's criminal foreign influences. But you guys are missing the slash hyper criminal foreign influences because that would have been overcome. Because the species body wants to be like all the parts of your body, more parts than there are countries. So rather than having countries that could traverse the earth, we should have that. In other words, we still have the founding locations. That scale of infrastructure set up to have with slavery, forced to be everyone together, sickly distinctly enslaved. Anyone try to speak about sickly non-distinctly, they'd be sent right through our own, individually grouped and together. I was taught at Central Connecticut State University. There were international companies that came and to measure. They all agreed. Anyone's going to speak about building outside of this context, do it here. There were also people with the computer department who involved other real estate companies and other departments with them, with predicate acts, with the former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and roles with borders, and roles with natures of trade agreements, and things that we could heal by putting some lasting ones, but also with it through temporary ones to make temporary / lasting positive value nature progressions. So I'm asking American military in Iraq to help us step up, because in other words, we had a shared enemy. And Saudi Arabia did and does. And Italy did and does. This breaching method knew that no one would be honest about the first parts of the Quran and of the Old Testament before it. That's why they say, too, the Old Testament and the Quran have parts that dictate how they want the books interpreted. It even tells people don't pray in the mosque if you don't. All you have to do is be honest about use of the name Allah for the identity, the hyper simultaneous or not. And it says to love the people if they don't. And it says kill them, but where it says that, if they lie about it though. But where it says that is talk about this is about international, where they're speaking about international law. But they are knaves, KNAVE, at countries A through Z. We have bin systems, tactical, terror, and grouped too. Because this breaching method before, from some ancient times, that which we refer to as ancient, note how left out were in our phrases like criminally foreign influence and like databases. The republic for which we stand since before computers, before it stood as America, it was an ancient republic. And it worked with exceptions because it was led by the species volume science, the species / S volume science. Because just like all the parts of our body share other parts of your body share a semi-nature relationship to your complete identity. And that complete identity shares a semi-nature relationship to the identity of the hyper-simultaneous. That identity of simultaneous nature. That is why and how each is how, too. Why each species is a distinct volume that way. Individual group difference / S in species volume. In other words, and it is more probable, for example, that the ancient pantheism as the republic of the as a function of the republic for which we stand. This is religion. This is also about the Trinity. This is also about the 5 pillars of Islam. But you guys can't appreciate this. And the difference between the people attacking the religions and the people preserving them with passions, too, no. That's also employed consciously. In other words, you guys are defending it and blaming it on things others are selling. You guys, the nature debate. You would have found out about how James Madison. You guys, just because something is recorded doesn't mean it's true. Especially with the convictions by America's founders and presidents. You cannot understand or appreciate them. And now, if you can't understand and appreciate how James Madison's plan with the founders behind him got George Washington to agree. And that's why they had to leave slavery and trench north and south. That's why they had to hide their actual motivations and their actual longings for the freedom of themselves and for others, which to an extent we know. And because we're told to get the Constitution unabridged, and etc. But see, there is a further extent that we have replaced, and it is being and has been used functionally to measure and maintain and to sense, even before they know about that, because nature demonstrates other ways. Because that's a body manifests that way. The proverbial blood clot. I'm not a doctor. That's bad. Excuse me. Some people use that term a lot, where people are tortured, sickly distinctly. Now, see, this breaching method built the phenomenon in Russia and in America, for example. The suburbs look exactly the way they did before our founders were even born. And now we can transfer it to Earth, but everyone has weapons pointed at each other. So everyone has the sciences, including the science of war, of strategic. You guys have collusions with psychiatry. More scams than there are streets in the cities. In other words, more millions are stolen through individual families associated, using remotely all investigators, all natures of perception. Relative to this, these sciences have been used remotely, where they are self-valued in your syntax, people, A through Z. So in other words, I'm not begging. I'm just saying we all are already longing. Iraq, America. In other words, look at that design. You have to understand this design was to keep people blaming the other things, others, or self for negative value nature progressions, acts of nature that nature is demonstrating. because nature has function /s by Earth's difference and a special difference here. And we could ignore that individually grouped, and even if we all ignore it all together and make it positives out of it, it'd be criminal thesis. Nature is a positive, and nature will demonstrate with negative value nature progressions, acts and natures. Acts like predicate acts. Natures like criminal insidiousness natures, wrongdoers, wrongdoing itself. Again, I am not a lawyer, but it is also recorded how the lawyers too. So there is hyper evidential that they have not been trained to use. And they have been using tactically abridged sciences, measured and maintained criminally foreign influenced teachings of American history, sequence shifting styles, forced by nature, styles, boxing, martial arts, and wrestling. They share individually grouped and together. They are grouped individual. For how this nature is constantly showing us the difference between how what is it individual, how group difference, and how simultaneous difference is manifest three ways. One of the things that's showing what everything is showing us equal is the extent we can discern of the hyper simultaneous. That is true all ways. Not denying the slightest sequence shift, not denying care for what really was before the smallest finite detail now as itself, and for what really will be. Not just with the extent of time it shows us ahead of time, like with the seasons and like with the value of the seasons, but also with that portion of time we don't know about that it shows us too, 5 parts of time, grouped relative to itself, relativity / hyperrelativity. Just like black pupils, whites of eyes. We have black pupils, whites of eyes. Therefore, there is relativity. That's the relativity theorem of Anthony Wall. Thank you all. Boxings. I teach us things but love. Till I hear. Come here. Begin. Come on. See the important things about the World Trade Center attack. On a mass scale, foreign and domestic intelligence, they pretend not to understand people. They pretend not to fathom that police departments. And with the mixture of how there are all these different countries and who's responsible and how they hurt each other with, where it's calmly with paper, specifically to keep people shooting each other, using poisons, using knives and threats and things like that. That's why we have the big tough guys with the Facebook pages, New Britain Superior Court, with passion crimes, with the Harvard Courts people, and with the FBI, and Wethersfield Police, Newington Police, Harvard Police, the same people involved with untimely deaths. People that make confessions and then pretend you had to make statements that are confessions to his relative. These are people involved with prosecutors and judges, with World Trade Center, with New York and Connecticut connections. And these are people with Washington, D.C. 2 speech class teachers I had have rules with people on other state corrections offices, on other state judicial branch offices. Other teachers I had. I loved all my teachers. All exception, nature, and demonstration, the same thing too. In other words, this is brought up by them. And in other words, they're needing to keep blaming on other things, others ourselves, and their sources. And the difference of that, because it's increasingly, this is on a mass scale. People may go back, oh, this person said this person said that. And they're pretending that others don't know that the others are involved. Because they have predicate acts with facts. Each age is spot everywhere we are. In other words, have you seen the elderly homes? They aren't allowed to leave there. They're involved with the same torture method against prisoners Oh, they will let it go if we had to quit. If we got into the details. That's why, because you guys rolls with the crime scene. You guys rolls with predicate with facts at the courts too. Ugh. The police forms, other courts, and there was no one knows how to do it, so let me do it. If you want forgiveness, we'll blame it on the hyperforeign, and we'll see what can or who can't. All we need is one person to keep it real. More World Trade Center predicate acts are evidence. Denials of it are evidence too. Get them on paper, one name and sequence. That's why they're switching names. Weathersfield police know this. They have wire crime acts and methods with other police forms and other departments. Nothing personal too. They have good police that confess this. In other words, it's important to get them on paper, one name and sequence with the courts, because they have roles with the same house /s with predicate acts of facts methods that we've been studying since we were kids. So we're gonna explain it proper now. Then we can do it funny. We can get, in other words, is there a famous sports person or a famous actor or comedian? In other words, who help me? We can't make this up. In other words, don't leave it out. In other words, more important, if someone has more important than the quality of my video, I'm speaking about predicate. I spoke about predicate acts with simple sentences. I told you people made threats on me that are credible. They also pretended I had conversations with people. I had no conversations at all. 3 days they held me prisoner at a hospital. And I'm the one who made people call the police. But I didn't tell them why. They didn't even ask me why. They knew why, because obviously, because they put fake conversations with me and with the federal criminals that are associated with the people who did that. I don't know all their names yet. I know one of them confessed over the phone. They just attached them too. The doctor, I think his name was Dr. Samuda. There's also, or that might have been one of those guys who switched his names. There's officers switching their names with New Britain Superior Court who have roles with people from Weathersfield through time. Like on Church Street in Old Weathersfield, have roles of various natures of wire crimes and falsified police reports from other sides of town, and home break-ins roles, and roles with untimely deaths in the past, and with the people who brought up the principal child offender. And these are the people with the roles with the campuses, and they have roles with the intelligence community, and they have roles since before the people involved came in with the spots next to where they used to live. As in other words, they have something to do with the corrections offices, 3 spots at the end of the Berlin Turnpike, involved with a whole bunch of probate court judges and superior court judges and prosecutors, and ones from Connecticut District Court, involved with predicate acts with facts and wire crimes, mail crimes, falsified police reports, planting evidences at body dumping spots, murderers' rolls, uses of such timed intercities, uses of confessions rolls. Then they use these crime methods where they pretend not to understand people after short words. And they had fake conversations with me as a kid. I had no conversations with the police department, with police as a kid. And then they had fake conversations with me as an adult too. I didn't have no conversation with police as an adult too. They painted themselves in corners. These are also some Black KKK, Latino themed, all these different cultures. Even Korea, all kinds of, in Pakistan. Pakistan had all kinds of roles with town lines and with prisons, with medical corruption, torture before the World Trade Center attack, effectively used to pretend that to get people forced, tricked, and persuaded to self-value roles with torture, the abridgments of the Constitution, methods also used to pretend that people spoke with them. They're attaching victims to fake conversations about things that happen to them, that actually happen to them. Actually, not actually, because they're putting all fake and wrong and things like that with names, and like they were using and have used investigators remotely, criminally foreign influence. Brendan Leahy has roles with people on off Central Connecticut State University and Trinity College, with overt criminal enterprises and private ones. And a Brian Silver also on the district court with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, with judges and prosecutors and their family members, wire crimes at the same house, rules with drugs and medicines crimes with kids, sexual, medical, and judicial, legal. These are all sides in criminal and civil cases. It has something to do with their roles with acting professors, planting fake motivations, increasingly screening, even preemptively screening their actual ones, because they had the World Trade Center attack. People with the name Demaro Cololo and a whole bunch of people tied to a former mayor Gold involved with the World Trade Center and intelligence communities and people on off parks and town offices and campuses involved with sexual and medical offenders, behavior racketeering, federal evidence is crime, federal rules of evidence is crime, identity theft, fraud, slanders, fake motivations planting, motivation screening, and lying about what other people are motivated to use their names. Joe Aiello was on Facebook involved, planting fake evidences with them. He's one of the people also involved with and Officer Jerry Miller. He confessed, recorded a whole bunch of people with names forging and switching evidence crimes on all sides of my house with the name Jerry Kerr. More than one person has that name. And Officer Jerry Miller, also with Police Chief Centron. And there are the other agencies. There were indications from the people at Central Connecticut State University in New Britain involved with the Weathersfield that the people that people might be, some of them might be Secret Service. The ones with the judges, like a Judge Smith, I had to write a complaint against him. He has roles with people with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and proven child abusers of kids, involved also with their family members, and his roles with the houses involved. And there are more people involved with bug spray. People, they're lying about their motivations too, because I stayed calm and intercities, and I didn't have calm just because people were next to me. I never even knew them. Then one time I yelled and forced people to call the police. Then I went there. I saw the people there, so I didn't have any communications with them. 3 days. In other words, then they put me in fake communications with these other doctors too. Then they fired them. The guy told me I saw the name of the thing. I called my house. He said they put me there. In other words, I was there. I never had a conversation with him. And then there's the Leahy family, who's been roles planting evidences with people on my street since I was a kid. He had fake conversations with me as a kid too, pretended through the news. And the news, WFSB, had a fake conversation with me. So one of the games they play are pretending not to understand people and pretending for legitimately trying to understand things. But they're leaking their rules with a whole bunch of countries on and off the campuses. And then they're lying about people's motivations. They're getting involved with what we're saying. So they're preventing our short words. They're involved with worse than extortion. And they forge and switch names. So there are some black KKK, Confederate flag, Korean themed people involved with medical and judicial offenders, including the difference of males and females. Because I've been watching some of them since they were kids. Sickly distinctly, the little girls and women have to hear things secondhand. Because they have to be grouped. They have to entertain the group think in ways that men don't. In other words, to free men or women, we have to free independence. That means we have to free security, in other words, free use of difference. We have to appreciate that difference as hyper invisible, but still discernible. And that otherwise we have, in other words, you, you have other things, others ourselves will stay blamed. Right, exactly where the breaching method wanted and needs relative to how it's discernible again. Not just this way, but how they left out how we have black pupils, white survive, and how that communicates things for nature, communicates answers. But we have a breaching method also that had employed that to mean others since before our founders were born. People would debate that, and they will self-value that. So you're self-valuing your own slavery. So in other words, we have to have a nature debate that's beyond the broken grammar school, that A through Z, the best ones to the worst ones, and the difference of that too it uses. This is a difference. We have the same color eyes, different color eyes at the same time. There are exceptions. A special difference. Speaks, all whisper creaks, species body trade. So we can convert the nature in the syntax, self-value of Israel in of terrorist bodies. They were tactically grouped wrong and criminally foreign influence. Criminal enterprises. You know, sick the people with prisons, their tactical delusions raw. You have logic experts. Now, these are a whole bunch of countries that have roles with courts and prisons and campuses that are still bridged and have been. In other words, they have predicate acts with facts roles, black pupils. We will explain it this way. Our programming will too. Who disbelieves. In other words, get them on paper, one name in sequence, please. The mandated law says that you don't play these games. They're lying about what's recorded to get away with it. So get them on name paper for that. Shouldn't have to keep speaking about the people's locations, in other words. But then we're going to speak about it more and more to get one name in particular. I've been asking you guys for years, leading up to the World Trade Center attack in that context and since. They've been attaching me, even to fake uses of drugs. Has something to do with a whole bunch of names next to associated with this Weathersfield Community Center and the town offices involved with drugs and medicine, crime, identity theft, fraud, slander. You're going to see these little creepy souls that each identity of law is. Forgiveness is for them and for everyone differently at the same time, because we're not going to leave out the breaching method, and we're not going to leave out how. Otherwise, that body is sentenced part. So we're going to stay on the predicate acts and the sequence shifts and the names forging and switching and get them on paper, one name in sequence. These are people intercities. Even when I lived other temporary locations, they are increasingly involved with people at the campuses I went every year I went. The people that are involved with the wire crimes right now, with the Weathersfield police, switching names, forging names, making confessions, bringing up the names of people around us too, while there's already violence about. Get them on name paper. Get me up for big conversation with the police and with the courts and with the WFSB. Get them on paper. Let's go. Whoa. Get them on paper.